Welcome to Too Many Tabs, a podcast where a husband and wife sit across from each other at a desk. Usually, the wife spends weeks poring over ancient tomes that she has found in the back of a dusty library, as she pours even deeper into her computer, clicking and opening tabs. How many tabs? Too many tabs. But did that happen this week? No. No, it did not. Instead, a husband went into the delve of the information space. A husband pulled out his digital pickaxe and he cracked open the case. And what is the case? The case is a story about a man who just loved, well, we'll find out more.
Okay.
Because it's too many tabs.
I was like, what are we talking about?
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.
In the middle of my dance during the theme song, you just pulled out a very large Bowie knife. Yeah, that's a scary knife. I'm glad I have it. Now, I have a question for you. Do we have any announcements for this week? I feel like register to vote.
Register to vote, y'all.
Join your local library.
Oh, my God.
Get your library card.
Do that.
And I have a YouTube.
Oh, we got this YouTube we've been working on, guys.
Yeah.
Y'all, you got to go watch these videos.
It's on the same place. You might be watching this podcast. Mm-hmm. You might be one of the weirdos who watches the podcast on my YouTube.
Don't call them weirdos.
You might be one of those weird freaks that watches a podcast, not like the good people who listen to podcasts. People who listen to podcasts, they're good. People who watch podcasts, scum of the earth.
You're like the opposite of the audiobook guys on the internet, because people are like, audiobooks aren't real books. And I'm like, bro, what? They're books. You listen to them.
Yeah, you're
like,
still hearing a story.
If you're not using your eyeballs, it's not reading. And you're like, okay, let me explain Braille to you real quick.
Yeah.
But you are when it comes to podcasting, you prefer audio over using your eyeballs.
I feel that podcasting and radio are hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that it's an audio experience, which is why the visual experience for our podcast, I'm not going to lie, kind of dog shit.
It's pretty good. You look great.
I look great. I'm looking right down the barrel of the
man.
camera right now. But in general, I do this very much the way radio stations do their live streams, which is just like a hard cam setup. Not a lot of click through, like the Breakfast Club. You know, they actually have like a better setup than most now. But much like local radio around here, like if you're like WMMR, where rock lives and rap doesn't.
Whoa, I don't think they say that second part.
No, a lot of them still do. Well, not as much anymore because now the audience has got. Listen, we're getting too far away. I have a YouTube.
But the YouTube is now special videos that aren't podcasts.
It's not the podcast. It is a new thing that I'm doing. I'm kind of taking the TikToks and the podcast
and mushing them
together. So it's a longer form video. The first one that's up is about the toilet paper panic buying of 2024. But in reality, it's about labor. It's about lavatories. It's about Luddites. It's a lot of different things in there. But it's up now.
And it's not an hour.
And it's not an hour.
No.
It's 20 minutes.
It's 20
and
minutes.
We hired an editor who
That's
we
right.
found.
We hired an editor. Because we are getting our shit together.
But yeah, so we're super hype, and it was a lot of fun to make, and it's a lot of fun, and it's gotten a lot of really good comments. So I just want you guys to know that's there. As
Check
well
it out.
as
also there's still tickets available to the other two shows.
Oh yeah, Phoenix and Dallas, mid-November.
Yeah.
So there, all that's in the show notes. You
Guess
can go down
what?
the show notes, go down there, and then click around.
We did it. We did announcements.
Look at that. We did announcements in under 4 minutes.
We did it.
So we are ready
We're
to start the show.
super good at podcasting. I dare AI to try to replace us.
You know why? You know what AI won't do? AI won't start out the way I'm about to start out this podcast right after this break. And if you don't want to hear ads, join us on our Patreon, pearlmania500.net. Neil Gaiman is a bag of shit.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Mm-hmm. I just want to I want to start this entire podcast by stating that Neil Gaiman is a giant bag of shit. Mm-hmm. I'll explain why at the end of the episode, but I want to just make that clear at the very top. Okay? Neil Gaiman, the author and writer, bag of shit.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
I did hear about that. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I want to say this is because one of my favorite comic books ever written is Sandman, and Neil Gaiman wrote it.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the works that he has done, but my favorite was Sandman because Sandman's the one that brought me back into comics as an adult.
Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, I was at a party. This is years after I'd given up reading comic books because comic books were for kids, and I got really, really hammered, and someone had a trade paperback of Sandman Volume 1. And the party was kind of dying down, and I picked up this book, and I started reading it, and I got caught, like, immediately. I was enraptured by it. It was such a cool book, and I love it.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys who don't know Sandman, whether or not it be the Netflix series or the comic books, it's a book about a character known as Dream. He is the king of dreams. His name's also Morpheus. And my favorite part of the books actually aren't about the main storyline. They're actually some of the one-shots.
Yeah.
Specifically the one-shots that show his interactions with his siblings. And even more than that are the ones between him and his siblings before he was captured in the book. So in the book, he's like captured in the 1920s. And like people stop dreaming and the whole dreamscape falls apart, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter. You get this kind of throwback prequel that is sprinkled throughout the entire books. And one of my favorite issues of those is Sandman issue number 31.
Okay.
And that was released on August 20th, 1991. It's titled 3 Septembers and a January. In this issue, okay, there is a wager between the Endless. Now, the Endless are dream, death, despair, delirium, all these different ones. And in the wager, the Endless are in a debate over who can claim a man's entire life before death claims him. Because death claims everyone.
Yeah, death gets everybody.
But while he's alive, who can claim him? And the four that are there are dream, despair, desire, or delirium.
Yeah.
So who can win? And this is this like incredibly moving story about the power of dreams. And it's the story set in like the late 1800s. And it's all about this guy. And like when you first see him, he's like the bottom of his, like he's about to like off himself. It's really, 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 really sad. But like the deeper telling of the story is about how dreams can manifest in the real world, and how even though it's just a dream, you can have like real life changes to the world, and you can change how you view the world yourself. And like it stuck with me for decades. It's been 20 plus years since I read it. I just love it. Which is why today we're going to cover the man at the center of that story, because that story, 3 Septembers and a January, is based on the life of a real man.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's the other part that's good, is like I may hate Neil Gaiman now, and I may know that he's a bag of shit, but like the actual character is real.
Yeah.
He just added the endless characters around it.
That's cool.
That's intro number 1.
Okay.
I wrote a second intro.
Okay, what's second intro?
So America famously does not have a king. Famously.
Okay.
We're pretty well known for not having a king.
Okay. We got people trying.
We don't have true nobility in that way. We have an elite class, but we don't have nobles, right? We have landlords, but we don't have lords. All these different things. We have presidents, and and until now, we have a peaceful transition of power. But there are forces at work in this country, and some of those forces are currently advising Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance that maybe America needs a modern-day Caesar. That maybe all republics at some point fall.
Okay.
And that maybe when republics fall, their leadership is inevitably replaced by a strongman. And those strongmen are typically a lot like Roman generals. And the Latin word for a strong Roman general is imperator, where we get the word emperor. So this November, we actually have a choice. Do we continue with our current system of presidents and checks and balances and 4-year terms? Or do we elect the first ever emperor of the United States of America?
I thought this was about the Sandman book.
That second intro was a lie. Do you know why?
Why?
Because America has already had a motherfucking emperor. That's right, baby. Today's episode is about the first ever emperor of the United States. The Emperor Norton I. Emperor of the United States and the protector of Mexico. The first Emperor of America's name was Josh, and he died in 1880.
I thought his name was Norton, but his name is Josh?
Joshua Abraham Norton.
Okay. All right.
Joshua Abraham Norton was born in early 1818.
Okay.
We don't know the exact date.
Sure.
In fact, to this day, historians are still arguing about it. They, after going through a bunch of different documentation and a bunch of other random... So one of the issues we're going to have is for big swaths of this dude's life, he gave interviews, and we don't always know whether or not he actually gave that interview. Because newspaper dudes in the late 1880s, they're kind of like TikTokers and YouTubers.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're just like, I heard they said this. And then they'll just
Yeah.
throw this thing up there. So after a few historical societies and historians, other people, we believe the exact date of birth may have been February 4th, 1818.
Okay.
But it could have been as late as somewhere in 1819. I'm just going to say early 1818.
But you're thinking the early February is correct. It's just the year that's different.
I think it may be, I'm going to say first quarter, 1818.
Well, I'm just saying, is he a Capricorn or is he an Aquarius? I guess we're going to find out.
We'll find out together. Baby Joshua Abraham Norton. Baby Josh was the second son of Jewish parents in England.
All right.
He was born in what is today be considered Southeast London. But back then was its own little town, but the map and incorporation and all that stuff has changed over time. So it's just Southeast London. His dad's name was John Norton.
Okay.
And his mom's name was Sarah Norden.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
So, and that's important, and not so much in this, but in general, when I'm looking through documentation, big families, big Jewish families, and the Nortons and the Nordens are different families.
Yeah.
The Norden side, though, very famous, not famous, but very well-known merchants in London. His parents have 12 children in total.
Okay, wow.
Josh is the middle of 3 sons, along with 9 daughters.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Listen.
Okay, guys.
God said, be fruitful and multiply, my
I
son.
bet.
Be fruitful,
Oh,
multiply.
Okay, all right.
In 1820, the family moved to South Africa. Now,
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on.
Now.
Hold on.
Yeah. Now, don't worry. He's not going to buy Twitter. But it caught me off guard. I'm like, here I am again with
Back in
another
South Africa.
back in South Africa, 1820 South Africa though. But this was a very particular time. So the 1820 settlers is a well-known thing in this area of South Africa where they move, because this is a big part of a British plan.
Okay.
So it's after the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon, the Emperor of France, different emperor, Napoleon the First, is defeated.
Yep.
Battle of Waterloo. 1812,
Got
all
him.
that.
Take that, bitch.
They got him. He's sent off to
Shorty.
He's sent off to that little island where he's going to die of stomach cancer. But you know what else kind of dies?
What?
The British economy.
Oh no.
Because the British economy was so whole hog into war
They
that it
love
had an
war so
issue.
much.
It had an issue like re-changing.
Yeah.
And so one of the plans that the British came up with was, let's just get rid of people.
We got boats, and we're not using them for war. Let's get these fuckers out of here, dude. America, Australia, South Africa, get them out.
It's literally what they did. They sent a lot of people to South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, all over the world.
Yeah.
Canada. But the British government came up with this plan to bring down that high unemployment. They had families sign up.
Yeah.
And it was something like 19,000, and there was like 9,000 were approved, but like only a few hundred actually were like shipped.
Okay.
The way it worked out. But these 1820 settlers, including the Norton family with baby Josh, arrived in South Africa. And then when they got to Cape Town, which is the capital, and it was the colonial capital then, they were then sent to the Eastern Cape.
Sure.
So South Africa is the Cape. Like
Yeah.
that's what the coast is really the Cape. And so Cape Town's more on the west. The Eastern Cape is to the east.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's the Indian Ocean side versus the Atlantic Ocean side.
Sure.
So they're being sent that way. And the reason they're being sent there is the local government wanted to increase British population because they had kind of won South Africa from the Dutch. So there's a lot of Dutch settlers there, and they speak that Afrikaans, which is the mix of English and Dutch and a bunch of other different stuff. And so they wanted to increase the amount of British people that were there. And they also wanted to shore up their defenses against the Zoha peoples.
Okay.
So the Zoha peoples is a collection of Bantu peoples, and Bantu ethnic groups are basically a bunch of different ethnic groups that are associated with south of the sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
So south of the big desert at the top of Africa.
Yeah.
Bantu
You want to
peoples.
tell you how our generation of gals probably found out about Bantu people?
Go ahead.
Gwen Stefani in the early aughts wearing Bantu knots in her hair. Before we really understood what cultural appropriation was, we were like,
Yeah.
"That's a cool hairstyle for."
Yeah, but to be
that
fair,
lady
she was like the Thanos of cultural appropriation.
She really did.
She was
dude.
collecting she had Bantu knots. She had Japanese ladies behind
She
her.
had the bindi on.
Yeah, the whole deal.
Listen, if you were any culture that wasn't a white girl from L.A.,
From
she was
LA.
on it.
Yeah, Gwen Stefani was just there. She was like, "What are you doing over there?" No, I don't need the spice, but give me some of
Wow.
that flavor.
So what's your music called? Ska, and it's Jamaican.
Now the
Sorry.
the Xhosa people, and there's a little bit of couple different ways to pronunciate that, and it's Xhosa. So apologies if I didn't nail it correctly. They were one of I think they're the second highest minority group, or excuse me, ethnic group in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're big population, especially in the Eastern Cape. They're like number one.
Sure.
This was also where they kept being pushed, because they originally were around Cape Town and they kept getting pushed, much like Native Americans here in America. The colony just kept expanding. So they're getting pushed further and further and further east.
So this family gets sent over to gentrify that area.
Yes, 100%. Now, where they're sent, there was a series of wars before they got there.
Okay.
There was 5 wars. The first 3 were fought between the Dutch, also known as the Boer colonists.
Mm-hmm.
They had 3 wars, and then there was another 2 that were fought by the British before Norton and the 1820 settlers arrived.
Okay.
These are known as like the Frontier Wars or the Xhosa Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the last war was important
Okay.
because it included a preacher. So there was a Xhosa preacher, and also he's also kind of nicknamed like a prophet as well. It's confusing. His name was Nexele.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that means the left-handed. That was kind of a nickname he had. So he was a Christian convert who kind of walked between worlds, between the white settlers and between his own peoples.
Okay.
And he was very deep into Christianity, but also the same way Christianity happens in all of these different areas. It changes over time because you're taking local stuff and you're melding it together.
Yeah.
The reason why Catholics love saints is because of Romans.
Yeah.
All that different. You know, Romans had huge pantheons of gods. How are we going to replace them? The same thing as you look at that across.
Yeah.
Eventually, though, Nexele saw Christianity as European culture invading Africa, specifically the Xhosa lands and its
correct.
peoples.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And he started preaching heavily and advising the chiefs heavily against European migration further into their lands. Again, very similar to Native Americans in America, where it's like, hey, we've given them a little, we've given them we keep giving these mice a cookie and they keep asking for more milk.
Yeah.
Like that's how this is happening. So he saw this threat as not only between European settlers and the peoples, but also as a theological threat.
Yeah.
He saw it as a fight between Thixo, the god of the whites, and Midladifu, the creator god of the Xhosa.
Yeah.
So in this part of South Africa, they viewed God as Thixo.
Yeah.
And so he tried to fuse the religions together before completely turning against European incursions. It was like a big deal in his mind. And also in what he was preaching. In 1819, he had kind of now become a prophet among the people and was speaking heavily in theological terms. And so he attempted to capture a town.
Okay.
In 1819, he led anywhere between 6,000 to 10,000 warriors to capture
Whoa.
Grahamstown, a settlement in the Eastern Cape. And again, this is the year before the settlers get there.
Yeah.
So it's 1819. He shows up with all these different people, and they try to take the town. The thousands of men, of Xhosa men who are trying to take it, are repulsed by about 350 troops.
What? Guns?
Yes, 100% guns. And a lot of this is a lot around the same time as like the movie Zulu and a bunch of other stuff. The Zulu are also there.
Yeah.
They're off to the side as well. But like the British at this point, their technology and their tactics are expanding and expanding and expanding. These guys had just defeated Napoleon at Waterloo.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys with cowhide shields aren't going to have the same impact.
Mm-hmm.
They're just getting rifles down there.
Yeah.
And they're selling them, the British are selling them like shittier rifles.
Yeah.
So like the British have like rifles and they're like, hey, you can have some muskets, you know, like that type
Yeah.
of deal to always make sure they're up on them. The song actually, Come Out and Eat Black and Tans, has a whole line about having a Maxim gun, which is one of the early machine guns, going up against people in South Africa.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a very different, crazy imbalance on the firepower and the tactics.
On purpose.
Nixele surrenders, and he was imprisoned on Robben Island. Eventually, he tried to escape Robben Island, but his boat capsized and he drowned.
Oh, okay.
Robben Island, you may have heard of, because that is where Nelson Mandela was held.
Oh.
And Nelson Mandela, a member of the Zoha peoples.
Okay.
Okay. Grahamstown was named after Lieutenant John Graham.
Sure.
He was the leader of the first British expeditionary force into the Eastern Cape.
I feel like I don't like that guy.
No, you shouldn't. And they actually renamed the town.
Yeah.
They said we're not going to name it. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was formed after the end of apartheid in South Africa renamed it the town after some votes and few things. And on June of 2018, the town changed its name to Makhanda.
Sure.
Which is the birth name of Nixele.
Oh.
So they changed the name from Grahamstown to the name of this prophet.
Love that.
So I wanted to say all of that because we don't know shit about Josh Norton in South Africa. We know very little. So I wanted to give you some context of what he's moving into at 2 years old.
Okay.
Because we barely know anything about his life. He is overall unremarkable down there.
He's a middle child.
He is the second son, which is even worse than a middle child.
I thought
no, he's the middle of 3 boys, and then there's 9 daughters.
But I assumed with it 9 daughters and 3 boys. That's like a swath. He's in the middle.
No, he's the second kid.
Oh.
They had 3 boys and then 9 daughters.
In that order. That's crazy.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
I thought they were doing that thing where they just don't count daughters, so maybe
No, they're also not counting the daughters because the daughters can't inherit.
Yeah.
So that's like that. That's just the way this is set up.
Wow. Okay. So he's the second son.
Yeah. His parents continued to work as merchants, and also his uncle and his siblings. So his sisters marry off and things like that. We can see that there's notations and there's some works like, not like phone books, but there's some things out there with his name in it that says of like different jobs he worked.
Sure.
And he worked in places like Port Elizabeth. He worked in Grahamstown and Cape Town itself. He mostly seemed to stick to his family's merchant businesses and handling their affairs in different towns. And at one point, he worked as an auctioneer, possibly at one of his uncle's auction houses. By 1848, though, Joshua was his father's only male heir. Because his older brother was Louis, and his younger brother Philip, they had both died, and his mom had also died.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
But Joshua was not present for any of this because he had left South Africa in 1845.
Oh, all right.
Now, the reason why I'm saying this in this weird way is because, again, this has been put together by later historians because it has been reprinted very oddly. All right. What we know from documents is that in February of 1846, Joshua aboards a ship in Liverpool. We don't have record of him leaving South Africa. We just know that he was in Liverpool in February 1846.
Yeah.
That boat went to Boston in the United States and arrived in March 12th, 1846. And then we don't hear from him for another 3.5 years.
I love how this could never happen today.
No.
Every step you take is like there's information, whether it's a camera on the street or a ping from your phone or your debit card going through, like you can see everything anyone does at any moment, any day.
Yeah.
And we're like, we don't know how we got there, but somehow.
The most you can really lose a person these days in like most of these areas where I'm talking about, like London, Boston, even in Cape Town, would be like 15 minutes. Yeah. You maybe could be like, well, we have 15 minutes. We can't really figure out where he was. But like everything else, like
reading a Dr. Bronner's bottle instead of playing with his phone.
Yeah, he didn't open his phone. Yeah. Oh, he left his phone in the other room.
Yeah, we don't know where he is.
Yeah. So he arrives in Boston, and then we don't hear about him for 3.5 years.
Okay, great. He had a great time.
And then he arrives in San Francisco, California, and that's where he's really known.
Okay, that's a trip.
So when he arrives later in his life, the papers will say that in 1849, on the 5th day of November, Norton arrived in San Francisco from the Cape of Good Hope via Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Valparaiso, Chile.
So he went from Boston to South America and then back up?
No. What it says in here, what the newspaper is saying is that he went straight from South Africa to Rio, then around at the bottom of South Africa, then to Chile, and then to San Francisco. Now, what we think he did...
I think they just heard his accent and were like, he must have come right here from South America.
Well,
South Africa.
Well, he talked a lot about South America later in his life and things like that, but he never mentioned Boston. So we don't know what he did in America when he hit Boston. He could have...
like, this place sucks. I'm out.
Maybe. He meant like cold. I hate it. It's cold.
Ugh. What is this accent?
A South African saying, what is this accent is wild to me. Some claim in some documentation that Joshua Norton arrived on a specific vessel.
Okay.
The Francesca on November 23rd, 1849. And they claim that he arrived there with $40,000.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And that they claim that $40,000 was part of his father's estate.
Oh, okay.
But some believe that $40,000 he made while in South Africa, buying and selling commodities, because that's kind of what he gets into.
Yeah.
The true point, though, is we literally don't know.
Yeah, we don't know nothing.
We don't even know if the $40,000 is true.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
That's a lot of money back then.
What we do know
Okay.
is that Joshua began to buy ads in local San Francisco newspapers in June of 1850.
Got it.
That's the next piece of paper we have from him.
What are the ads for?
He was basically telling people like, hey, I'm buying commodities. So it's like, you can hire me to buy commodities. You can invest with me, like do these different type of things. And for those of you guys who don't know, commodities are like, he's buying stuff like sheep, like wool, like rice.
Oranges.
He's buying oranges like in that movie.
That's exactly what I was
I know.
thinking.
Was
Trading
it
Places.
Trading Places?
Yeah, orange.
Yeah, anytime
orange.
anybody in America these days, if you ever mention commodities, people are like the Eddie Murphy movie, Trading Places.
Trading Places. And Murphy.
Yeah, but oranges, anything, but the oranges is true. But that's exactly what the type of stuff he was buying. So he's buying it from one person who shows up at the port, and the port merchant is just trying to dump it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'll buy it from you for 5 cents, and then I'll sell it down the street to Murray, and then Murray's going to the Murray warehouse, and then Murray's going to sell individual bags.
Yeah, it's called Ollie's.
Ollie's, yep. 100%. Where you can get the best Amish romance novels. So what we do know is from June 1850 or so is that he spent his starting funds, however much it was worth. The word I wrote down here is parlayed, but basically he kept doubling his money.
Nice.
Until he had $250,000.
That's crazy.
That is $9.9 million in 2023.
Shit. Okay.
He by 1852, Joshua Norton was one of the wealthier people in San Francisco.
Okay.
Like very, very rich. He was a member of all the official affluent clubs. He knew the right people. He went to all the best parties. Basically, he's Bruce Wayne.
You know what? I was thinking, it sounds very Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he's very,
Val
very...
Kilmer Bruce Wayne?
No, he's definitely...
Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne.
No. He's Christian Bale Bruce Wayne.
Oh, it's Christian Bale. He's all grumpy?
No, he's not grumpy, but I'm saying like when Christian Bale Bruce Wayne is like, I'm a party animal. People like me. I'm very nice.
I just feel like Christian Bale is like kind of like moody.
No, but not
I
when
didn't know Josh was going to be so moody.
No, but not when you're thinking Christian Bale as Batman.
Oh.
You keep thinking about as Batman. I'm talking about as like Playboy Bruce Wayne. Like being out on the town, being seen by people, being seen in all the right places.
Hanging out with Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Knowing how to work the press.
Yeah.
Having his picture taken, all those different things, right?
All right.
Now, it's late 1852. Okay. A famine hits China.
Yes.
Now, this is important.
Yeah.
Because China supplied all of America's rice at the time. Like a majority of our rice imports came from China. Mm-hmm. Now, this caused the price of rice to go through the roof. It 900 times.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, well, 900%.
Yeah.
9 times, actually. So it went up 900%, 9 times. So it was about 36 cents a pound, which is much higher than it usually is.
Yeah.
Usually it's selling at about like 4 cents a pound. And a guy walks up to Joshua Abraham Norton and is like, hey, you're rich. Why don't, and you know, you want to corner this market right now? Because like I have like the only rice. And Joshua Norton's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I have a ship full of rice from Peru.
Okay.
And this is some good shit. And but it looked right out there in the harbor. Here, you know what? Honestly, why don't you have yourself a taste? They cut open a bag. A little bit of Peruvian rice comes out. He's like, yeah, try it. He's like, that's some good fucking rice. He's like, yeah, you got
Rubs
good
it on
rice.
his teeth.
Rubs it on his teeth. It's some good rice.
That's some good rice.
So he offered this man offered Joshua Norton this whole cargo ship full of Peruvian rice for 12.5 cents a pound. And again, it's selling for 36 cents.
Okay.
The rice imports haven't completely, they virtually stopped though.
Yeah.
And everybody's freaking out about it. Joshua agrees. He signs a deal, pays them $2,000 cash.
Okay.
Right then. And the deal says he'll pay a total of $25,000.
Okay.
Which is a lot of money.
Yeah, for
back
sure.
then. So he's like, I'm going to pay you $25,000 cash tomorrow, and then we'll get all the rice. And the next day, another ship shows up with Peruvian rice that's even better rice than the one that he just bought.
Okay.
And the day after that, another ship shows up with Peruvian rice that's better than the rice that he bought. And then the day after that, and then the day after that. And for the next like couple weeks, the market is flooded by Peruvian rice.
Okay.
And Joshua's like, I've been screwed.
Yeah.
And he's like, now
bamboozled.
I've been bamboozled. They've cheated me. The price of rice drops from 36 cents to 3 cents a pound.
So this, I understand he got bamboozled. One bad deal. It's really kind of a drop in the bucket financially, though. It doesn't seem like that much should affect him.
It should be. It should be.
But he's mad.
He's big mad.
He's big mad.
And he's got money.
This is about his ego.
And he's got lawyers.
Oh, he's got lawyers.
And he keeps paying the lawyers.
Okay, keeps on retainer.
And for 2 years, he takes this shit to court. And he takes it all the way to the California Supreme Court.
Okay.
And
Rice law.
And because he doesn't want to pay the remaining $23,000, and in fact, he wants to get the $2,000 back. And he spends today's money; it'd be millions of dollars.
Okay.
To fight to keep this bit.
Yeah.
He goes virtually destitute, and by October 1854, the California Supreme Court ruled against him, and he had to pay out the $25K. He also had to pay out all of his lawyers. He also had to pay all the court fees and everything else. And so by the end of that year, he was broke.
Yeah.
So in 1855, he ran for the tax collector of San Francisco.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Because I was going to say, I know a celebrity who used to have a reality show. He did other things. I don't recall them. But he also was notorious for just suing people that he was supposed to pay instead of paying them.
Yeah.
To the point where he'd pay more in lawsuit fees just to not pay a contractor in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Actually bankrupting his own businesses.
Yeah. Ironically, for around $25,000 for some cabinets.
Yeah. And so I'm just saying, I was going to say that's crazy that a reality show star did that. And then to run for an elected office.
Yeah, ran for tax collector.
Crazy. Who would do that?
Didn't win. 1856,
They were like, you're not doing our taxes?
1856, he filed for bankruptcy.
Uh-huh.
And then he ran for Congress in 1858.
Perfect.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He announced he was
He
running
heard
for
about that $175,000 a year.
Well, he announced. So the thing is you slowly start to realize that newspapers back then were very much the Facebook of their time.
Yeah.
So he would all these things we have is because he'd make announcements and he'd go to the paper, and either the paper would print it or he'd pay them to print it.
Yeah.
And so these announcements would run. So in 1858, he announced, he's like, I'm going to run for Congress to represent San Francisco, but he wasn't on the ballot. So the ballot for that special election ran in September 7th, 1859, and his name wasn't on it.
Oh my God.
But he had announced he was going to do it, right? So he's kind of trying to, gin up support and press. Yeah. But the reason why he really wasn't on it wasn't just the fact that he was broke. It wasn't just the fact that he was living in a boarding house that was like 50 cents a day or any of this stuff. No, the reason why was Joshua Abraham Norton was in a deep depression.
Okay.
He was probably suicidal. He was running through a bunch of other issues. But after this break, when we come back, I'm going to go over how Joshua Abraham Norton rose like a phoenix from the ashes of his depression.
Wellbutrin?
To declare his imperium across the United States.
That does not sound like Wellbutrin.
It does not Wellbutrin. And you know what? You might get an ad for Wellbutrin or for some worse thing.
Yeah, like BetterHelp.
But if you don't want to hear that, you can always join us on our Patreon. And we'll be right back after this little break. We're back.
Let's fucking go, dude.
Okay.
So we're getting out of our depression right now.
Okay, so it was...
Get out of the blankets.
What was that date I said? September 7th, 1859 was when the election was.
Yeah.
They said he was going to run for.
He didn't.
He wasn't even on the ballot.
Didn't even fill out the paperwork.
10 days after that election.
Okay.
The San Francisco Daily Evening Bulletin newspaper. What a name.
It's concise.
The San Francisco Daily Evening Bulletin newspaper. The one thing for people to remember is back in the day is they used to print newspapers throughout the day because there was no other way to get news.
Yeah.
Especially before radio, especially before television. You like in the late TV era, before cable especially, there would be an evening newspaper and like a morning newspaper. But they used to have ones like, there was guys who were like, we print every day at noon and at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And there's other guys like, we print the morning and we print at 3 p.m. Like they had these different things. So daily evening meant it's like a 5 p.m. newspaper. And the newsies would be on the corner, extra, read all about it for 2
Get a
pennies.
newspaper for your lunch.
Yeah, come over here. Well, this is a whole musical about unionization.
I love Newsies. That was one of my favorite movies growing up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
With Christian Bale. Now, September 17th, 1859.
Sure.
All right, 10 days after he did not become a congressman.
Yeah.
An article, an announcement ran in this newspaper, the San Francisco Daily Evening Bulletin newspaper. Every time I say it, it's just so long. Quote, at the peremptory request of a large majority of the citizens of these United States, I, Joshua Norton, formerly of Algoa Bay, Cape of Good Hope, and now for the last 9 years and 10 months past of San Francisco, California, declare and proclaim myself Emperor of these United States, and in virtue of the authority thereby invested, do hereby order and direct the representatives of the different states of the Union to assemble in musical hall of this city on the first day of February next, and then and there to make such alterations to the existing laws of the Union as may ameliorate the evils under which the country is laboring, and thereby cause confidence to exist, both at home and abroad, in our stability and integrity. Signed, Norton I, Emperor of the United States.
This is incredible. I have so many thoughts.
Yes.
Number one, I love that he was rolled up on his couch like a little sad burrito.
He's in goblin mode.
He's
definitely in goblin mode. Yeah.
And he's like, there's only one way out of this. I gotta be the emperor of the entire country. And I gotta call the papers. I gotta tell them. And I just picture the guy reading this, and it was like, I guess we're gonna print it.
You know what?
Whatever.
You know what?
And then also, he's calling all the leaders to San Francisco to go to the music hall in February, which is his birthday. He's just inviting them all for his birthday. This is all just, he was depressed on his couch, and he just wanted people to come celebrate his birthday.
I want Congress to come to my birthday.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't put that. I do want to point out to everybody that, remember, this is 1859.
Mm-hmm.
We're right before the Civil War. Shit is tense in America.
Yeah.
And this failure is looking around, depressed as shit.
Yeah.
Probably just about to go take a long hot bath with a razor blade, right? And he was like, you know what? I can fix it. He is the brother from Succession, declaring that he should be the president.
Oh my God, the shitty brother that lives in like the Southwest.
Yeah, the one
house.
with the New Mexico house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But here's the thing: the difference is from here on out, love this guy.
Okay,
love this guy.
This is his pop-up.
I just want to say we've covered a lot of shitheads.
Yeah.
I straight up this now part of it could be press.
Yeah.
Love this dude. Because this is 10 days after he loses a fucking congressional race that he never even fucking applied or qualified for.
He Jill Steined it. He didn't even fill out the paperwork.
He not like. Here's the thing. You know what he did better than Jill Stein? He didn't accidentally list himself as a fucking petition in Nevada. Dumb bitch. Anyway, his 20-year reign is the least controversial political reign in United States history. His Majesty, Norton I, because he no longer calls himself Josh.
Smart.
He goes by Norton I.
I knew that Norton was a stronger name from the.
It's a much stronger name. Norton I, the Emperor of the United States, would regularly issue proclamations through local newspapers.
Oh my God, it had to be so fun when those came in.
In January 1860, he declared that the army should remove Congress because he had already abolished it the previous year.
Smart.
In January, he was like, why are you still here? I told you to go away. This is the proclamation he wrote in January 1860. You ready? Whereas the body of men calling themselves the National Congress are now in session in Washington City, in violation of our imperial edict on the 12th of October last, declaring that said Congress is abolished. Whereas it is necessary for the repose of our empire that the said decree should be strictly complied with. Now, therefore, do we hereby order and direct Major General Scott, the Commander-in-Chief of our armies, immediately upon receipt of this, our decree, to proceed with a suitable force and clear the halls of Congress.
I have a question.
Yes.
These proclamations,
Yes.
are they all being sent out to the same San Francisco newspaper?
So, I'll get into it a little bit later.
Okay. This is why I need to know.
Yes.
Because if I lived back then, 1850-ish, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is really 1860.
1860s. Okay, so it's the 1860s. I'm a gal living a life, right? These proclamations would be my joy.
Yeah.
I would read the newspaper just looking for them. There are certain people I follow on the TikTok and the Instagrams where they are just little chaos goblin demons. And there's no reason I should watch those videos. But I'm like, I'm here to hear what you're saying, bud. Tell me about how, okay, I'm not going to get into it, but there's certain things I love to watch. And back then, this would have been, I would have based an entire week around one of these coming out.
So, okay. So, all right. I can jump ahead a little bit. Okay. I was trying to stay kind of close
you
to
don't
it.
have to.
No, I'm going to, because you've already brought it up. It became such a problem that so many newspapers were posting fake shit that he had to pick one.
Oh my God.
Because so many different people were like, just like with me on my TikTok, you know, there's so many fake Pearlmania 500 TikTok accounts and Facebook accounts and all these other different things. Other people were pretending to be him.
To be the emperor.
In different newspapers. And like his proclamations.
Because the little goblins like me were like, oh my God, what is the emperor saying?
Now listen, the proclamations that I was able to find for the most part seem to actually hold up. Like to modern day. Like they aren't truly shitty. Now, that could be because of the lens I'm looking this through.
Yeah.
Some of the organizations, the emperor is very beloved as a quirky thing in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And even then, he was fucking beloved.
Yeah.
And so, like, they knew if you said new proclamation from the emperor, it would pop a little bit of sales.
Yeah.
It's not crazy numbers, but he had fans.
Yeah.
So eventually, he did have to actually pick an official newspaper in 1871. Where is it here? 1871, Norton declared that only one newspaper would be his official imperial organ.
Oh my God, yes.
Printing his certified decrees. The Pacific Appeal.
Yep, I'm getting a subscription. I need to know.
Well, it closed in 1880. But it was a black-owned and operated newspaper. It was an abolitionist newspaper focusing on the civil rights of African Americans living on the West Coast.
Oh, hell yeah,
And
dude.
he published 250 official decrees through that. And we use that to go through the prior decrees to make sure, because a lot of them are fake.
Yeah.
There's a big one that's fake is, and it's said a lot in San Francisco, that the emperor declared that the word Frisco is banned.
Okay.
You know, like how people are like, oh, I'm going to Frisco instead of saying San Francisco.
Yeah.
People hate that. That rumor didn't really exist until like the 1930s.
Got it.
But that seems to be a later invention. He really cared more about like actual people, and like a lot of his stuff was really about like local things he saw, and he would declare. So like if a trolley line wasn't running well, he'd be like, "This trolley line should be fixed," and like screaming about things like that.
I have
Yes,
an
go
immediate
ahead. Go
thought.
ahead.
I have an immediate thought.
Yes, this is
the reason that you like this man because you are this man?
The reason why I like him is
because you get on your phone and you yell about local things that happen and demand that 95 get fixed, and then the governor shows up.
I will tell you this right now. If you ever leave me, I will declare myself emperor.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Because I'm starting to see some parallels here, bud.
Yeah. In July 1860, as the Civil War is like on the edge and things are getting worse, Norton declared that the Republic is suspended and a temporary monarchy should be installed.
Smart.
In 1862, he demanded that the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches come together and ordain him officially as emperor.
Oh, man.
So he could resolve the American Civil War.
You know what? Maybe.
After the Civil War, he declared that both the Republican and Democratic parties should be abolished to end political strife and promote harmony across his realm.
Was he wrong?
No, that's the thing. That's the thing. But again, I am getting a lot of this from there's the Emperor Norton Trust and a few other different things I got this from. Obviously, they want to paint him in a good light, and so it's very difficult to find.
Yeah, this is the Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, but also it's being printed by people who want us to like him.
Yeah. Not
only today, but back then. The information we're going to have. So these are some of his other proclamations, some of which were considered kooky at the time. He was a religious humanist, which meant that he not only wanted there to be pluralism, which means that multiple religions should be able to exist in harmony. He also believed that church and state needed to be separated. And he warned heavily against sectarianism, like wanting to ban Democrats and Republicans.
Are you sure?
He refused to give his imperator, which means his royal presence, to any one church or synagogue. So instead, he had tried to attend as many as possible. He just tried to be at all of them.
Smart.
He prohibited the enforcement of the Sunday laws, so blue laws, so not being able to sell alcohol or do certain things, because he said that the Sunday laws discriminated against Germans and Jews.
Well,
because Germans didn't follow that type of bullshit, and Jews only care about Saturdays.
Saturdays, they're Saturday people.
He supported women's right to vote.
Wow.
He was defender of the people's right to fair taxes and basic services, a big thing being streets, streetcars, ferries, and trains. Big on public
transit.
Big on public transit.
My boy loves public transit.
Would have hated an Elon Musk.
Oh, my God.
He demanded that African Americans be allowed to ride public streetcars, and he said that they should be admitted to public schools. There should be no segregation.
Sure.
He was a persistent voice for the fair treatment and enhanced legal protections for immigrants and racial and ethnic minorities. Because he himself is an immigrant and also a minority. He commanded that the courts allow Chinese people to testify in court. Yep, that was an issue. They wouldn't let the Chinese testify in court. And he pronounced that the eyes of the emperor will be upon anyone who shall counsel any outrage or wrong on the Chinese, including during the Chinese Exclusion Acts and others. He went out and stood in front of the crowds as mobs would form.
Yeah.
And he would yell at them to disperse. He would stand on a little apple box.
Yeah.
And hold up his cane and yell that you should disperse. And everyone would go, okay, emperor, nice try. And then they'd go back to rioting. He proclaimed,
I like his effort, though.
Yes.
Enthusiasm. I like it.
He proclaimed with respect to Native Americans that all Indian agents and other parties connected with frauds against the Indian tribes were to be publicly punished before as many Indian chiefs as could be assembled together.
I feel like I would vote for this guy.
Yeah, he was very much, he's like, we got to stop being weird to the Native Americans. This is crazy. Also, he kept saying repeatedly, when there was physical strife, so when United States forces and cavalry and others were fighting with local tribes, he would offer to be the ambassador, between and try to find
the arbitrator.
Arbitration. He'd be like, everyone come down, we can all smoke my pipe. He was big on everybody come down here. We're gonna smoke a pipe and we're gonna fucking talk it out.
Yeah, dude.
1863, when French Emperor Napoleon III of France invaded Mexico. A lot of people forget that happened, but Napoleon I, the one you're thinking of, his nephew was Napoleon III. They skipped the second. It's a whole big deal. Napoleon III became president of France. He then overthrew the Republic and declared himself emperor, and then he invaded Mexico. Okay. Norton I added the title Protector of Mexico to his name. During the Civil War, he's like, we got to stop fighting each other, and we got to kick that fucking Napoleon out of Mexico.
Yeah, get that guy out of here.
Again, on the ball.
Yeah.
He's just right.
He's reading the morning, afternoon, and dinner newspapers, though, because how is he knowing all this is going on?
Because that's literally what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because he's basically broken home, not homeless, but he has nothing to do.
Yeah.
His days, so I have this a little bit further, but I'll go with you on it, because fuck it. This is what he did all day. He basically, the second the sun rose, he got up and he'd get a newspaper. And he'd go to free lunch and front lunch counters.
Yeah.
And he'd eat there. And then he would go around to local libraries, and he would go to the legislature. He'd go to city council. He just went to places. Anything that was open, he went to because it's free.
Yeah.
The library's free. Hey, I'm going to go I'm going to go to the fucking Sacramento and go watch the assembly, talk about laws. All right. So he was actually well-versed in everything and knew how everything was going on. So his proclamations are about everything he's seeing.
Yeah.
Like, one of his proclamations is he's looking around and he's going like, hey, there is an issue here. Like, Oakland and San Francisco are across each other on this bay. And, like, they should be connected. We have the power. We should build a bridge. So in 1872, he demanded the construction of a bridge spanning the San Francisco Bay and connecting Oakland and San Francisco.
Are you kidding me right now?
And everyone was like, yes. And it was like the top. Everyone was like, the emperor's right. We need this fucking bridge. It finally got built in 1936.
Things take time.
It is called the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge. It's more commonly known as the Bay Bridge. Yeah. But there's multiple movements to name it the Emperor Norton Bridge.
Yeah, for sure.
Multiple
times.
They
absolutely should.
He also called for a tunnel to be built.
Okay.
Like an underground tunnel. And eventually it wasn't exactly where he said it should be built. But the bridge did actually follow pretty closely to what he said they should do. He was right. And, emperors famously do have these mega projects. So this is his big imperial mega project. It should be the Emperor Norton Bridge. The tunnel was built in the 1970s. So one of the other reasons we really know about Norton is he was very, very good friends with a local journalist.
Okay.
That local
because he was always there reading.
Because he's always there.
And he was at the things they were at.
Yes.
If he was at City Hall, then the journalists were at City Hall.
Well, and this journalist. This journalist's name was Samuel Clemens.
Oh.
Who also pen name Mark Twain.
Yeah.
So Mark Twain knew him very well. All these other different guys, and he's also very easy to spot.
Okay.
Because this is what he used to dress in. An elaborate blue military-style uniform.
Okay.
With gold epaulets that he was given by veterans of the Civil War.
Okay.
He would wear either a beaver hat or a top hat.
Yep.
And that always had a large feather on it. And that would either be a peacock or an ostrich feather.
Yeah.
And then he carried either a walking stick or an umbrella or something. He had that sort of look to him. Because he's an emperor. And then almost every day, a local florist would give him a leftover carnation that he could wear for his lapel. Oh. So it would be these carnations are just past, kind of like old bagels.
Yeah.
There's a thing with the flowers where it's just beginning to wilt. No one's going to buy this.
Yeah.
You can have it, emperor. So he'd wear that in his lapel. He was often followed around by 2 dogs.
I'm sorry, what?
2 stray dogs.
Okay.
The dogs were named Bummer and Lazarus.
Bummer? He named one of them Bummer?
He didn't name them.
Oh, okay.
The press named them.
No.
So these were really well-known dogs. So the dogs and the emperor and others, they used to all kind of be near this one bar that all the journalists hung out. And so journalists from the Californian, the Daily Alta California, Daily Morning Call, Daily Evening Bulletin, and others, they all hung out. It's kind of it's a journalist bar.
Yeah, we have one in Philly.
Yeah, pen and paper. And so there's all these different places. Pen and pencil, whatever. But they would get hammered and they'd just sit there. And so they all wrote heavily about Bummer and Lazarus.
Okay.
Now, Bummer and Lazarus were really well known because they were rat killers.
Yeah, rat terriers.
They're rat terriers, but Bummer was a black and white Newfoundland mix, and Lazarus was just like a mutt.
Okay.
But Bummer, which is the black and white one,
yeah,
he saved Lazarus from a fight with a bigger dog.
Okay.
And then Bummer, and again, journalists are writing about this because they're like, I got no fucking story. That dog just fucking fuck up that other dog and save that other dog's life. So Lazarus gets saved by Bummer.
Yeah.
Right? And Bummer coaxes him back to health. Which is why the journalists named the second dog Lazarus, because it's like the biblical Lazarus coming back, right? So,
but why is the first one Bummer?
That's just the name.
But I mean, come on.
I couldn't find a specific on why his name is Bummer, but I think it meant something very different. Maybe he has
a bum leg or something.
It might be something like that. But these dogs would follow the emperor around.
Yeah.
And the emperor would get very mad because people kept saying they were his dogs. And he's like, no, those are strays. Those are basically homeless dogs. And they're like, no. He's like, it doesn't befit my imperial majesty. But it just became this thing. And then there was this local cartoonist would always draw them together.
Yeah.
The dogs were really, really well known. At one point, Bummer was taken by a dog catcher. In a new dog catcher.
New to the town. Just started.
1863.
Newbie.
Captured Bummer.
Thought he was doing a good job.
Thought he was. Mob of angry citizens showed up and demanded that the dog be released. And they also petitioned city supervisors and multiple editorials were written, and this was a big story. And eventually the dogs were given a full pardon. And the city supervisors stated that the dogs were exempt from any city ordinance against stray dogs. And now this similar issue happened for the emperor in 1867.
Okay.
A special police officer named Armand Barbier.
Okay.
He arrested Norton and attempted to have him committed to an insane asylum.
I'm sorry. The emperor?
Yes, 100%.
Why?
Because he said he was crazy. He's like, this man's clearly insane. He needs to be 302'd or whatever they call it in your local municipality when they're like, this man is a danger to himself.
Because he had a cool hat and a silly little outfit?
Because he's like, and I am the emperor, sir. He got thrown in jail. Again, angry mob.
Angry mob shows up.
Angry mob showed up. Editorials abounded. Every journalist loses their mind because, like, what are you talking about? An editorial stated, quote, that the emperor had shed no blood, robbed no one, and despoiled no country, which is more than can be said of his fellows in that line.
Yo, what?
They're like, listen, we literally have a good emperor. Eventually, the police chief ordered that Norton was freed, and
obviously.
he issued an official apology. And then Norton granted an imperial pardon to the officer. And after that, from there, that moment forward, Emperor Norton I would be saluted by any San Francisco police officer as he was passing.
Okay.
So with that, we're going to take a break, and we aren't doing any shout outs this week, but we're going to take a break, and we'll finish off with the remainder of the Emperor's life.
Pearlmania, 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 Pearlmania.
500.net. Yeah. As I said, no shout outs this week, but we are going to close out on today's episode about the Emperor.
Tell me how the heck this has to do with this comic book.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you'll know how the story of the comic book is the story of his life. Everything I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
The story in the comic book starts with him at the moment of depression.
Oh, after the rice incident.
After the rice, after he lost the court case, all those different things.
And these eternal gods are like, who's he gonna...
Literally, he's in the story.
Yeah.
He's in the flop house holding a razor, thinking about slitting his own wrist as despair is sitting behind him, being like, do it. You know, feel like wallowing in his misery.
Self-pity.
Yeah, and then so Dream puts this dream in his head.
Yeah.
Shows up and says, you're the Emperor of the United States. And so he just starts declaring himself Emperor of the United States. Desire shows up and tries to, like, you know, goad him away from being the Emperor, and it doesn't work. Delirium shows up. It's like, well, he's actually not crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he is the Emperor. He believes his dream, and believing your dream isn't crazy.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole story is.
Got it.
So a big thing about the Emperor Norton is kind of, as we've touched on a few different things here, about how well he's known in the press, but also San Francisco, especially in both the 1960s and in the 1860s, very much like Philadelphia for you and me when we were living there. In a lot of cities, there's these well-known street characters.
Yeah.
They're not as well-known today in a lot of these places because of how massive our cities have become. But when you had the time of, like, a city couldn't be over 1 million people, but like San Francisco at this time, like, doesn't have a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
In, like, city center, specific people get really, really well known.
Yeah.
And there's these characters.
Absolutely. There was the Rose lady out front of mentioned Strawbridge and Clothier in the last the warm up. There was a Rose lady. There was the vent guy who used to blow his vent on his shirt and went, like, viral on the internet. Yeah. That dude just used to do that.
Yeah. And there's Daniel.
I was gonna say Danny. Yeah, Danny the cookie kid.
Yep.
There's a bunch of them. When I was growing up, there was there's the Swiss cheese guy. That was the whole thing.
That was a different thing.
That was a whole different
but
thing.
if you knew just street people, there was the riddle bum in Philadelphia who'd come up and he would charge you $1 for a riddle.
Yep.
And he had pretty good ones.
Yeah.
But all back then, again, they're also like, there isn't, the news has to, they're printing a paper every day.
Yeah.
They need to fill it.
Yep.
So they start to fill it with these characters. So there were other notable characters around the same time as the Emperor. Number one, the Money King.
The Money King.
The Money King.
Okay.
So he was a curbside loan shark. So he hung around, like, the financial district, and he had this big sign that was just like money, and, like, it was crazy interest rates.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of money.
Yep.
And if you couldn't pay him back, fuck off. But he was known as the Money King, and that was his sign. George Washington II.
Okay.
So he was basically a ripoff of the emperor, but he was a failed photographer from New York who moved out, and I guess like he couldn't get a business license in time. And so I guess he realized he kind of looked like George Washington, so he just started dressing up like George Washington.
So he was a street performer kind of guy.
Kind of, but he also declared that he really was the second coming of George Washington. And people were like, okay. And eventually he moved back to New York.
Yeah, go back.
And then hung around like Washington, D.C. a lot. The next one was The Great Unknown.
Oh.
Which I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
I love, it's the coolest. Remember that thing that happened over the summer where they did the AI Willy Wonka in England?
Oh, yeah.
And there was like a creature that like the AI added a bad guy.
Yeah, it did.
And I think it was the Great Unknown.
Yeah.
It was something along those lines.
That happened again, It happened in Chicago, I think.
What, they did another Willy Wonka?
I think, no, it wasn't Willy Wonka. It was Bridgerton this time.
Oh, someone did an AI Bridgerton
Somebody
thing?
they're like, it's a Bridgerton event. Everybody's going to come dressed up. It's going to be a ball and like champagne and dancing and a live band. And so all these people bought tickets to this event, and then they got there and there's like AI pictures of like a tea set. There was a stripper for some reason. There's like a woman dancing on a pole in the middle of an empty room. It was the same thing but Bridget, but people like bought or sewed these beautiful gowns. Like they thought they were going to like this big experience.
Yeah, and that AI experience was just so wild for so many different people. But the big thing with the Great Unknown is in 1860s, 70s San Francisco, he was just a well-dressed German with a large head of hair.
He just had good hair.
He just had big hair.
Oh,
He had big, black, like curly hair, and he was very quiet, and he was very well-dressed.
Yep.
I think it was like 1871. They made this big deal about it when the one thing I was reading, he left town at some point with his wife. And then shortly after he left town, they started selling hair tonic and saying that it was like the oil of the Great Unknown.
Oh my God. It's such a market.
I know. And lastly, there's a character who also shows up in the Sandman book.
Okay.
The King of Pain.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't sound as cool as the Great Unknown.
Yeah, but the King of Pain, he was a man who was a dandy. And he would wear a crushed red velvet suit and top hat, and he rode around in a black carriage that was pulled by all white steeds.
That sounds cool.
He was a quack.
No. Oh, shit.
And he basically just sold a high-proof alcohol cure-all tonic.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And it was called the King of Pain tonic. But over time, they stopped associating King of Pain with the tonic and started calling him the King of Pain.
Yeah.
It was a cure-all for everything.
I bet.
Basically, it just got you fucking smashed.
Can't feel the toothache if you're fucked up.
Yep. So with that, that's just kind of like how that the Norton Emperor Norton was kind of mixed in with all these different guys.
Yeah.
He was really well known in like the opera scene. He basically had free tickets to any show he wanted.
Yeah.
He was a member of a local Masons lodge that he joined before he became destitute. And the Masons, among others, were the ones who were paying his daily boarding house rent.
Okay.
So like he would get money from the newspapers or from all these other different things, but like people would like give him money. The other thing is he's where we get the term king or queen for a day. Oh. He would sell titles of nobility to people, as well as he had his own scrip. So he had his own currency that he would sell people.
That's so cool.
And so you could get like cash from the emperor.
Yeah.
And then it could only be used. It's basically a coupon.
It was an NFT.
It was basically an NFC coupon that could be used at certain businesses. So certain local businesses would support it.
Yeah.
Because it was just part of like that whole thing. And it's like, yeah, you come in, you spend that, and it's fine. But on January 8th, 1880, Emperor Norton I,
Don't say passes away.
he collapsed on the street outside of Old St. Mary's Cathedral.
Oh my God.
He was found and rushed to a hospital and pronounced dead. His funeral was on January 10th, and it was attended by 10,000 people.
Holy, yep, I bet it was.
Yep.
He was an emperor.
He was very well known and well regarded by everyone. He was memorialized as a character in Huckleberry Finn. Mm-hmm. Robert Louis Stevenson had him play himself in his novel The Wrecker. Other people have references, again, like I said, Sandman and other people. And basically people who were in San Francisco long enough, like, discover this guy and they go, this is so fucking crazy.
Yeah, I love it.
That, like, he just had this dream and everyone just fucking went with it.
Yeah.
Across San Francisco, there's various plaques and dedications to him. But it's in Sandman.
Yeah.
That's where I first heard about this man and how if you truly believe in your dream, then none of the other forms can hurt you.
Yeah.
Just believe in your dream. And like I said earlier, luckily, Norton, Emperor Norton I was a real person, so we don't have to rely on the story written by Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Because for those of you who don't know, who are fans of his, Neil Gaiman has been accused of sexually assaulting 5 different women throughout his career. And some of the accusations are pretty horrifying. He's also, as these accusations have come out, more people have discussed how he was really well known to not leave young fans, young female fans, like talking about people in their early 20s, around him at literary events or comic book conventions or others. Basically, kind of the whisper down the lane that you had in the comedy area around like Cosby.
Yeah.
The charges are all over the place on what he's been accused of. But it should be noted that Neil Gaiman's current film and streaming adaptations are on pause or have ceased production across all of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they don't usually just do that because they are just heard of an accusation. There's a couple different podcasts have covered this. The Neil Gaiman subreddit is very heavily into covering it. And this is one of those situations where you and I discussed it a little bit. You can't unread something. You can't unfeel how you feel about a story. But it's also very difficult to separate an art from the artist.
Yeah.
However, all of that being said, the Emperor Norton I
was a real dude.
Is a real dude. And I just wanted to let you guys know how I first heard of him.
Yeah.
And kind of where that is all tied together.
Yeah.
So with that.
This is a great episode.
Thank you.
You did a really good job.
Thank you.
I don't think you get enough praise for how good you are at stuff.
Oh.
And you did a really good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you did a really good job of sitting there and listening and being an active listener.
Thank you.
Honestly, you're a really, really good active listener, and you don't get enough praise for that. In fact, actually, one person actually sent the opposite. What's the opposite of praise? Scolding?
Scolding?
Yeah, somebody a long time ago sent me a message, was like, you and your wife do too much active listening, and it's like super annoying. And I was like, and I legit was just like, I just blocked them. I was like, eat my ass.
You do too much active listening.
I guess because we both used to work in phone centers and stuff like that, so we want to just make it audibly known that we hear each other. Go,
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
okay, yep, I got you.
Yeah.
And it annoyed this person. I've only ever gotten one complaint about
Please don't leave more. Please don't leave more.
So with that, I think because sometimes we forget to do comments to tell people what comment that they should do.
Oh, our word of the day.
Our word of the day is going to be
Bummer the dog.
I was going to say active listening.
Oh.
You know what?
I'm so mad about this name Bummer.
Make sure that you actively listen to how to get a library card from your local librarian. And that's why this week's episode's call out in the comments should be Bummer the Dog.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.